Hey folks, in today's Conundrum, we will cover the case of Richard Francis Cottingham, an American serial killer and rapist who preyed upon New York and New Jersey from 1967 to 1980. With at least 18 victims, he was known as the New York Ripper, the Torso Killer, and the Times Square Killer. Cottingham's confirmed killings led to 9 convictions, 8 confessions, and multiple life sentences in New Jersey prisons. In 2009, he chillingly claimed responsibility for 80 to 100 perfect murders nationwide. Surviving victims testified against him, resulting in 3 convictions and 1 acquittal. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and put the notification bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. Richard Cottingham, born on November 25, 1946, in the Bronx, New York City, was the eldest of 4 children. His family relocated to Dumont, New Jersey in 1948, and later settled in River Vale, New Jersey in 1956. It was during his time in River Vale that Cottingham developed an interest in bondage pornography. He graduated from Pascack Valley High School in Hillsdale, New Jersey, in 1964. After graduating, Cottingham began working at Metropolitan Life, where his father held a vice president position. Starting in the mailroom, he later became a mainframe computer operator after taking computer courses. In October 1966, he joined Blue Cross Blue Shield Association as a computer operator, remaining there until his arrest in 1980. Interestingly, Cottingham worked alongside Rodney Alcala, a fugitive child molester and future serial killer who used the alias John Berger while living in New York. However, there is no evidence to suggest they were aware of each other's criminal activities. On May 3, 1970, Cottingham married at Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Queens Village, Queens. He and his wife had 3 children together. Their marriage faced challenges, and in April 1978, his wife filed for divorce, citing abandonment and mental cruelty. The divorce was put on hold temporarily when Cottingham was arrested in May 1980, but it was eventually finalized after his conviction in 1981. Richard Cottingham's criminal activities were not initially linked to his murders. He faced multiple arrests for lesser offenses during his killing spree. In 1969, he was convicted of drunk driving and fined $50. In 1972, he was convicted of shoplifting and sentenced to pay a $50 fine or serve 10 days in jail. In 1973, he was arrested for robbery, oral sodomy, and sexual abuse, but the case was dismissed when the complainants did not appear in further proceedings. Similarly, in 1974, he was arrested for robbery and unlawful imprisonment, but the case was also dismissed as the victim did not appear in court. Cottingham claimed to have started killing at a young age. In 1967, he strangled Nancy Shiava Vogel in New Jersey. Her body was found under a blanket in her car. He was later charged with the 1968 rape, beating, and strangulation of Diane Cusick in New York. Cottingham was convicted of 5 murders in total between 1981 and 1984. These included the brutal beating and strangulation of Marianne Carr in 1977, the mutilation and burning of 2 sex workers in 1979, the murder of Valerie Ann Street in 1980, and the strangulation and throat-cutting of Jean Rayner in 1980. Over the years, Cottingham made additional confessions to various unsolved murders. He admitted to the killings of 3 teenage females between 1968 and 1969, Jacqueline Harp, Irene Blaze, and Denise Falaska. These cases were exceptionally closed by the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office with agreement from the victims' families. Cottingham also confessed to the 1974 murders of Lorraine Marie Kelly and Marianne Pryor, and the 1970 murder of Lorraine McGraw. He further admitted to killing 4 women in Long Island, New York, during 1972 and 1973. Mary Beth Hines, Laverne Moye, Sheila Hyman, and Maria Emerita Rosado Nieves. In 2023, Cottingham confessed to another homicide committed in 1967. Through various confessions and investigations, Cottingham's extensive criminal history has gradually been revealed, shedding light on the extent of his violent acts. In May 1980, Richard Cottingham picked up 18-year-old Leslie Ann Odell, engaging in a sexual transaction. After checking into a motel, Cottingham handcuffed Odell and subjected her to torture and assault. Her cries prompted motel staff to call the police, leading to Cottingham's arrest. Upon apprehension, he was found with various disturbing items, including handcuffs, a gag, weapons, and prescription pills. The charges against him included kidnapping, attempted murder, sexual assault, possession of weapons, and controlled substances. During the early 1980s, Cottingham was convicted of 5 murders in separate trials in New Jersey and New York. Despite his efforts to avoid detection, a fingerprint left at a crime scene linked him to one of the murders. Evidence, survivor testimonies, and items belonging to the victims further connected him to the crimes. After initially denying involvement, Cottingham eventually confessed to the 5 murders in 2009. Over the years, Cottingham made additional confessions. In 2010, he pleaded guilty to the 1967 murder of Nancy Vogel and confessed to killing 3 schoolgirls. In 2021, he pleaded guilty to the 1974 kidnapping, rape, and drowning of Lorraine Marie Kelly and Mary Ann Pryor. Cottingham confessed to the 1970 murder of Lorraine McGraw in 2022. He pleaded guilty to the 1968 murder of Diane Cusick and officially admitted to killing 4 other women in Long Island: Mary Beth Hines, Laverne Moy, Sheila Hyman, and Maria Emerita Rosado Nieves. In March 2023, he confessed to the murder of Mary Ann de la Sala in 1967. Richard Cottingham has admitted to killing 18 victims, potentially up to 100. His known victims were adolescent girls and adult women between 1967 and 1980. He drugged and tortured sex workers before strangling them. He disposed of their heads and hands to hinder identification and kept personal items as trophies. These are the known victims of his heinous crimes. We won't let them be forgotten. Mary Ann de la Sala, 17. Disappeared in Hackensack, New Jersey in 1967. Her body was found 3 months later in the Passaic River. Cause of death, strangulation. Nancy Schiava Vogel, 29. Found dead in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey in 1967. She was last seen 3 days earlier and was kidnapped by Cottingham. Cause of death, strangulation. Diane Martin Cusick, 23. Found dead outside a mall in Valley Stream, New York in 1968. She was beaten, raped, and strangled. Cottingham pretended to be a security guard or police officer to approach her. Jacqueline Leah Harp, 13. Disappeared in Midland Park, New Jersey in 1968. Her body was found the next day. Cause of death, beaten and strangled. Irene Blaze, 18. Reported missing in 1969 and found strangled in Saddle River, New Jersey. Cottingham saw her shopping in Hackensack and convinced her to join him before killing her. Denise Falaska, 15. Disappeared in Gloucester, New Jersey in 1969 and was found dead the next day in Saddlebrook. Cause of death, strangled. Lorraine Montalvo McGraw, 26. Found dead in South Nyack, New York in 1970. She had a history of prostitution. Cause of death, strangulation. Mary Beth Hines, 21. Found dead near a creek in Rockville Center, New York in 1972. Cause of death, strangulation. Laverne Moy, 23. Discovered in a creek in Rockville Center, New York in 1972. Cause of death, strangulation. Sheila Hyman, 33. Found bludgeoned and stabbed to death in her home in North Woodmere, New York in 1973. Marita Emerita Rosado Nieves, 18. Found strangled to death in Wantagh, New York in 1973. Lorraine Marie Kelly, 16, and Mary Ann Pryor, 17. Hitchhikers who were found beaten, raped, and strangled in Montvale, New Jersey in 1974. Marianne Kanjemi Carr, 26. Found dead in Little Ferry, New Jersey in 1977. She was kidnapped, tortured, raped, and strangled. Karen Schilt, 22. Pregnant waitress who was sexually assaulted and abandoned by Cottingham in New Jersey in 1978. Susan Geiger, 19. Tortured, beaten, and sexually assaulted by Cottingham in 1978. Dita Goodarzi, 22, and Manhattan Jane Doe. 2 women found burned, beheaded, and mutilated in a New York City hotel room in 1979. Valerie Ann Street, 19. Found dead in a motel in Hasbrouck Heights, New Jersey in 1980. She was suffocated to death and had numerous bite marks. Thank you to all who stuck to the end of the video. All small creators like me have certain goals in mind when they start this journey, and reaching a quarter of it is my first big milestone. Since we are all interested in similar topics, my idea is to do a giveaway for a 1-year Curiosity Stream plan when we reach 250 subscribers, as a thank you for your support so far. I'm happy to have you here. I am Alex, and this is Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe. Hey folks, in today's Conundrum we will cover the case of Charles Edmund Cullen, born on February 22, 1960, an infamous American serial killer. As a nurse, he unleashed a reign of terror that spanned 16 years, targeting numerous patients across multiple medical centers in New Jersey. In 2003, his murderous spree came to an end with his arrest. Shockingly, Cullen admitted to the possibility of committing up to 40 murders, although the authorities have only been able to confirm at least 29 of his victims. However, testimonies from police, psychiatrists, and journalists strongly indicate that the actual number of lives he claimed might be far higher. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please subscribe, and put the notifications bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. Charles Cullen's early life was marked by tragedy and hardship. Born on February 22, 1960, in West Orange, New Jersey, he grew up in a working-class Catholic family, the youngest of 8 siblings. His father, Edmund, passed away when Charles was only 7 months old, leaving his mother, Florence Cullen, to raise the children on her own. However, the struggles didn't end there. Throughout his childhood, Cullen endured constant bullying from his schoolmates and his sister's boyfriends, which made his upbringing a miserable experience. At the age of 9, he made his first suicide attempt by ingesting chemicals from a chemistry set, setting the stage for a troubled future. Tragedy struck again during Cullen's senior year of high school when his mother died in a car accident. Devastated by her untimely demise, he felt further anguish when the hospital failed to promptly inform him of her passing, and instead cremated her body. In the following year, Cullen graduated from West Orange High School and joined the United States Navy, seeking a fresh start. Assigned to the submarine USS Woodrow Wilson, he underwent rigorous training and psychological evaluations. Despite successfully passing these tests, Cullen struggled to fit in and was subjected to hazing and bullying from his fellow crew members. During his service, an incident caught the attention of his leading petty officer. Cullen was discovered at the missile controls wearing surgical attire, including a mask and gloves, instead of his uniform. Although disciplined for his actions, he never provided an explanation for his peculiar behavior. Consequently, Cullen was reassigned to a less demanding role on the supply ship USS Canopus. However, his mental health deteriorated, leading to multiple suicide attempts and subsequent commitments to the Navy psychiatric ward. In 1984, Cullen received a medical discharge from the Navy under undisclosed circumstances. Shortly after leaving the military, he pursued a career in nursing, enrolling at Mountainside Hospital's nursing school in Montclair, New Jersey. Despite his troubled past, Cullen was elected president of his nursing class and graduated in 1986. He began working at the burn unit of St. Barnabas Medical Center in Livingston, New Jersey. Meanwhile, in 1987, he married Adrienne Baum, and they welcomed their first daughter into the world. However, their marriage began to crumble as Cullen's erratic behavior and cruelty towards the family pets escalated. In 1993, Adrienne filed a restraining order, expressing her fear for herself and their children. She accused Cullen of spiking drinks with lighter fluid, burning their daughter's books, and leaving the children with a babysitter for an extended period. Cullen denied these claims, insisting his wife was exaggerating. Charles Cullen's chilling murder spree unfolded across multiple hospitals, leaving a trail of victims in his wake. It began at St. Barnabas Medical Center, where on June 11, 1988, Cullen administered a fatal overdose to a patient. Confessing later, he admitted to killing several others, including an AIDS patient who received a lethal insulin overdose. As investigations into contaminated IV bags commenced, Cullen left the hospital in January 1992, with suspicions linking him to numerous patient deaths. Moving to Warren Hospital in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, Cullen continued his deadly acts, targeting 3 elderly women with digoxin overdoses. One of his victims, in her final moments, mentioned a sneaky male nurse, but her claims were dismissed by family and healthcare providers. During this time, Cullen's personal life was plagued by turmoil. Following a contentious divorce, he lived in a basement apartment and harbored a desire to quit nursing in 1993. However, court-ordered child support obligations forced him to persist. In March of that year, he broke into a co-worker's home, but left without disturbing her and her child. Cullen's stalking behavior escalated, leading to a police report and his guilty plea for trespassing. Multiple suicide attempts followed, and his mental health continued to deteriorate. Cullen's deadly path extended to Hunterdon Medical Center, where he claimed to have refrained from harming anyone during the initial 2 years. However, records from that period were unavailable at the time of his arrest. Between January and September 1996, he admitted to murdering 5 patients with digoxin overdoses. Subsequently, Cullen found employment at Morristown Memorial Hospital, but was soon terminated due to poor performance. A series of brief employments followed, marked by suspicions and incidents. Cullen's time at Liberty Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania, ended with accusations of administering drugs at unscheduled times, and an encounter that left a patient with a broken arm. At Easton Hospital, he was blamed for a patient's death, but the evidence remained inconclusive. Despite mounting concerns and deaths linked to his actions, Cullen managed to find work due to a nursing shortage and a lack of reporting mechanisms to identify problematic nurses. In March 1999, he joined Lehigh Valley Hospital Cedar Crest, where he murdered 1 patient and attempted to kill another before voluntarily resigning. He then moved to St. Luke's Hospital, where suspicions arose after medication vials were found in a disposal bin. However, an investigation was dropped due to insufficient evidence. In September 2002, he began working at Somerset Medical Center. He continued his deadly acts, using various substances such as digoxin, insulin, and epinephrine to kill at least 13 patients and attempt to kill others. His unusual behavior, including accessing rooms and computerized records of patients not under his care, drew attention. The hospital's drug dispensing system revealed alarming patterns of medication requests, leading to suspicions of foul play. In July 2003, officials from the New Jersey Poison Information and Education System alerted Somerset about suspicious overdoses. The hospital failed to report a non-fatal insulin overdose in August, prompting state officials' reprimand. When a patient died in October 2003, police were finally alerted, and an investigation unveiled Cullen's dark secret. Charles Cullen was arrested on December 12, 2003, after being charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. 2 days later, he admitted to the homicide detectives that he had murdered Father Florian Gall and attempted to murder Jin Kyung Han, both patients at Somerset Medical Center. Shockingly, Cullen also revealed that he had killed as many as 40 patients throughout his career. In April 2004, Cullen pleaded guilty to killing 13 patients and attempting to kill 2 others by lethal injection during his employment at Somerset. As part of his plea agreement, Cullen agreed to cooperate with authorities, provided they did not seek the death penalty for his crimes. In subsequent court appearances, he pleaded guilty to the murder of 3 additional patients in New Jersey, and 6 patients in Allentown, Pennsylvania. During these proceedings, Cullen disrupted the courtroom, repeatedly taunting the judge and challenging his authority. On March 2, 2006, Charles Cullen was sentenced by Judge Paul W. Armstrong in New Jersey to 11 consecutive life sentences. He is not eligible for parole until June 10, 2403. Currently, he is serving his sentence at New Jersey State Prison in Trenton. In a separate sentencing hearing in March 2006, Judge William H. Platt of Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, added 6 more life sentences to Cullen's punishment. Throughout his legal proceedings, Cullen's cooperation with law enforcement continued. He worked with authorities to identify additional victims, revealing the extent of his deadly actions. His motives for the killings were complex. Cullen claimed that he overdosed patients to spare them from experiencing cardiac or respiratory arrest, which he found unbearable to witness. He also stated that he wanted to prevent the dehumanization of patients by ending their suffering. However, not all of his victims were terminal patients, raising questions about the validity of his justifications. The case exposed significant flaws in the healthcare system and legal obligations of employers. Cullen managed to move between facilities undetected due to the absence of reporting requirements for suspicious behavior by medical workers. Employers often hesitated to take action, fearing lawsuits or potential legal repercussions. Following Cullen's conviction, many hospitals faced lawsuits from the families of his victims, resulting in sealed settlements. In response to the case, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and other states implemented new laws to encourage honest evaluations of workers and improve patient safety. Charles Cullen's chilling story has been the subject of various films and documentaries. The 2008 film Killer Nurse, the 2020 documentary Charles Cullen Killing for Kindness, and the 2022 film The Good Nurse are among the adaptations that explore the shocking crimes committed by Cullen. Hey folks, in today's Conundrum we will cover the case of James Dale Ritchie, an American serial killer who perpetrated a series of chilling crimes in Anchorage, Alaska in 2016. With a gruesome tally of over 5 victims, his attacks primarily occurred in parks and along bike paths, casting a shadow over the city's tranquil spaces. Ritchie operated exclusively at night, often choosing the cover of midnight or shortly thereafter to carry out his heinous acts. However, his reign of terror was brought to an end during a confrontation with the police in downtown Anchorage on November 12, 2016. Following his demise, investigators discovered a Colt Python handgun in his possession, which provided a crucial link to the string of murders committed over a span of 2 months. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please subscribe, and put the notifications bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. James Dale Ritchie, born on November 4, 1976, had a complex personal history that eventually led to his involvement in a string of horrifying crimes. Growing up in Anchorage's Wonder Park neighborhood, Ritchie attended East Anchorage High School, where his athletic prowess made him stand out among his peers. He played alongside future professional athletes Trajan Langdon and Mao Tosi on the state championship football and basketball teams in 1994. During his teenage years, Ritchie became close friends with Quincy and Bobby Thompson, finding solace and support in their family. However, tragedy struck when Quincy passed away. Shortly after, Ritchie's connection with the Thompson family gradually faded, and he lost touch with them. After a brief stint at West Virginia University, Ritchie dropped out and returned to Alaska in 1995. It was during this time that he became involved in illicit activities, including drug dealing and dogfighting. Adopting the street name Tiny, Ritchie faced multiple arrests over the next 7 years, primarily for drug-related offenses. In 2005, he was apprehended during a home invasion, armed with plastic handcuffs and 2 handguns. After serving a 2-year sentence, Ritchie remained in Alaska and acquired a Colt Python handgun. In 2013, Ritchie temporarily relocated to Broadway, Virginia, where his parents resided. Apart from minor traffic violations, he had no further encounters with the law and was considered a law-abiding citizen by local authorities. However, Following a breakup with his girlfriend, Ritchie returned to Alaska in March 2016. He regained possession of the Colt Python and settled in different areas of Anchorage, including Airport Heights and the Penland Parkway Trailer Park. Seeking mental health treatment, it remains unclear whether Ritchie received a formal diagnosis. This turbulent personal history provides insight into the factors that may have contributed to James Dale Ritchie's later involvement in the chilling series of crimes that would haunt Anchorage in the coming months. Between the dates of July 3rd and August 28th, James Dale Ritchie embarked on a series of chilling murders that shook the city of Anchorage, Alaska. The first confirmed victims were Brianna Foisey, a 20-year-old homeless woman, and Jason Netter Sr., a 41-year-old with a history of run-ins with the law. Their bodies were discovered together along a bike path near Ship Creek. The murders took place in the early morning hours of July 3, 2016. The relationship between Foisey and Netter remains unclear. The case was officially declared a double homicide by the Anchorage Police Department, APD, on July 5th. Surveillance footage led to the release of images of two unidentified persons of interest in the investigation. Approximately 26 days later, on July 29th, Ritchie committed his third recorded murder. Travian Kindell Thompson, the 21-year-old son of Ritchie's childhood friend Bobby Thompson, was fatally shot multiple times while riding his bicycle home from work. Witnesses spotted Ritchie near the crime scene, and a composite sketch of the suspect, later confirmed to be Ritchie, was created. The same murder weapon used in the previous killings was determined to have been used in Thompson's murder. On August 28th, Ritchie struck again, this time in Valley of the Moon Park. Kevin Turner, a 34-year-old homeless man with mental health challenges, and Bryant Bree DeHusen, a 25-year-old environmental activist, became his victims. Their bodies were discovered by a passerby in the early hours of the morning. The Alaska State Crime Lab confirmed that the murder weapon used in their deaths was the same as in the previous murders. As the APD recognized the pattern emerging from the string of murders, an advisory was released, warning citizens to avoid isolated trails after dark. The FBI joined the investigation, and Anchorage Mayor Ethan Berkowitz attributed the city's record-breaking number of murders to gang violence, refusing to acknowledge the serial killer theory. The FBI offered a $10,000 reward specifically for information leading to the arrest of the suspect responsible for Thompson's murder. The joint APD and FBI task force received numerous tips, including some related to Ritchie. Mandy Primo, Thompson's mother, conducted her own investigation, claiming to have spotted Ritchie armed near a hospital and reported her findings to the APD lieutenant. These events marked a period of fear and uncertainty in Anchorage as law enforcement agencies and the community worked diligently to apprehend the serial killer responsible for the series of tragic murders. On November 12, 2016, James Dale Ritchie's reign of terror came to a violent end in a deadly gunfight with Anchorage Police Department officers. The confrontation unfolded near the corner of 5th Avenue and Cordova Street in Anchorage. Officer Arne Salau and Sergeant Mark Potsky encountered Ritchie during the early hours of the morning while responding to a report of unpaid taxicab fares. Officer Salau, spotting Ritchie walking down the street, approached him and requested him to stop. Ritchie ignored the command and continued walking, prompting Officer Salau to repeat his request through a megaphone. Suddenly, without warning, Ritchie turned, approached Officer Salau's vehicle, and unleashed a barrage of gunfire from his Colt Python revolver. Officer Salau was struck 6 times, sustaining severe injuries to his bones, intestines, and liver. Despite his wounds, Officer Salau fought back, returning fire and engaging in a physical struggle with Ritchie. Sergeant Potsky, witnessing the encounter, also opened fire on Ritchie, ultimately delivering the fatal shots that ended his life. Officer Salau was rushed to a nearby hospital, where he underwent extensive surgery and eventually recovered from his injuries after spending hours in the intensive care unit. Following Ritchie's demise, the investigation took a significant turn. The Colt Python found on his person was sent to the Alaska Crime Lab, where it was confirmed to be the murder weapon responsible for the deaths of Brianna Foisey, Jason Netter Sr., Travion Kendall Thompson, Kevin Turner, and Bryant DeHusson. The police task force, initially unaware of Ritchie's involvement, discovered the connection between the homicides and the attempt on Officer Salau's life. However, they had deliberately withheld this information from the public to prevent Ritchie from disposing of the weapon. The Colt Python, unregistered to Ritchie, had been purchased in 1971, and investigators sought to determine how it ended up in his possession. Ritchie was quickly identified as the assailant responsible for Thompson's murder, as witnesses and photo identification matched the composite sketch. As the investigation progressed, more evidence emerged, linking Ritchie to the other murders tied to the Colt Python. Meanwhile, the FBI delved into Ritchie's activities in Virginia and Nevada before his return to Alaska in 2016. On April 26, 2017, the Anchorage Police Department announced that sufficient probable cause had been established, confirming Ritchie as the sole perpetrator behind the 5 murders and officially labeling him a serial killer. The investigation concluded, closing the cases. A month later, on May 23rd, dashcam footage preceding the confrontation between Ritchie and Officer Salau was released, along with details about Ritchie's personal history, shedding further light on the tragic events that had unfolded. Let us not forget the victims whose lives were tragically cut short by James Dale Ritchie's heinous acts. Brianna Foisey, Jason Netter Sr., Travion Kendall Bobby Dwayne Thompson, Kevin S. Turner, and Bryant C. DeHusson. Their memory serves as a reminder of the devastating impact of senseless violence. May they rest in peace. Thank you to all who have stuck with me until the end of the video. All small creators like me have certain goals in mind when we embark on this journey, and reaching 1/4 of that goal is my first significant milestone. Since we all share a common interest in similar topics, my idea is to organize a giveaway for a 1-year Curiosity Stream subscription plan once we reach 250 subscribers. This giveaway will serve as a token of appreciation for your support thus far. I'm genuinely grateful to have you all here with me. Comment down below if you have any recommendations for my future uploads. I am Alex, and this was Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe. Hey folks, in today's Conundrum we will cover the case of Robert Christian Hansen, also known as the Butcher Baker, who gained infamy as an American serial killer. Operating between 1971 and 1983 in Anchorage, Alaska, Hansen engaged in a horrifying spree of abductions, rapes, and murders, targeting at least 17 women. His preferred method involved hunting down his victims in the wilderness, armed with a Ruger Mini 14 rifle and a knife. The community lived in constant fear as he remained undetected for years. Hansen's crimes came to an end in 1983 when he was convicted and sentenced to 461 years in prison. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and put the notification bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. Robert Hansen, born on February 15, 1939, in Esterville, Iowa, had a troubled early life. He was the eldest child of Edna Margaret Hansen and Christian Chris Hansen. Robert worked at the family bakery alongside his father. In 1942, the family relocated to Richmond, California, but returned to Iowa in 1949, settling in Pocahontas. During his youth, Hansen struggled with shyness, a stutter, and severe acne that left him with permanent scars. Rejected by the girls he desired attention from, he developed a deep resentment towards them, nurturing dark fantasies of revenge. As he grew up, Hansen remained a quiet and solitary individual, finding solace in activities like hunting and archery. In 1957, Hansen joined the United States Army Reserve, serving for a year before receiving his discharge. He then became an assistant drill instructor at a police academy in Pocahontas, Iowa, where he formed a relationship with a younger woman. The two married in the summer of 1960. Robert Hansen's criminal activities began in December 1960, when he set fire to a Pocahontas County Board of Education school bus garage as an act of revenge against his high school peers. The arson resulted from his bitterness and unpopularity during his time in school. He was apprehended and subsequently sentenced to 3 years in Anamosa State Penitentiary, of which he served 20 months. While in prison, Hansen was diagnosed with manic depression and periodic schizophrenic episodes. The diagnosing psychiatrist described him as having an infantile personality and a strong obsession with seeking vengeance against those he believed had wronged him. During his incarceration, his wife filed for divorce, severing their relationship. After his release, Hansen had several encounters with the law for petty theft, leading to repeated jail terms. In 1967, he relocated to Anchorage, Alaska, with his second wife, whom he had married in 1963, and they had 2 children together. In Anchorage, Hansen built a reputation as a skilled hunter and enjoyed a favorable reputation among his neighbors. However, Hansen's criminal behavior escalated in December 1971. He was arrested twice within that month, first for attempting to abduct and rape a housewife, and later for the rape of a sex worker. He pleaded no contest to assault with a deadly weapon in the case involving the housewife, while the rape charge related to the sex worker was dropped as part of a plea agreement. Hansen received a 5-year prison sentence, but after serving 6 months, he was placed in a work release program and transferred to a halfway house. In 1976, Hansen was convicted of larceny for stealing a chainsaw from an Anchorage store. This incident led to a 5-year prison sentence, during which he received psychiatric treatment for his bipolar disorder. The Alaska Supreme Court eventually reduced his sentence, resulting in his release after serving the time already served. These events showcase the escalating criminal behavior and legal consequences that marked Robert Hansen's early life. The killing spree, spanning from 1971 to 1983 and painting a grim picture in American history, is one way or another tied to Robert Hansen. His first known victim, Celia Beth Van Zanten, an 18-year-old girl, went missing on December 22, 1971, after visiting a supermarket in Anchorage. Her body was discovered 3 days later, bound and sexually assaulted in Chugach State Park. Hansen denied responsibility for her death, but evidence suggests his involvement. Megan Siobhan Emmerich, a 17-year-old student, disappeared on July 7, 1973, in Seward. She was last seen leaving a dorm laundry room and never returned. Hansen admitted to being in Seward that day and claimed to have taken her to a secluded cabin, where he allegedly killed and buried her. Mary Kathleen Thill, a 22-year-old woman, went missing on July 5, 1975, in Seward. She was dropped off at a local bakery, but was never seen again. Hansen admitted to being in Seward on that day, but denied killing her. Suspicion arose due to an X marking on his aviation chart near Resurrection Bay. According to a former prisoner, Hansen confessed to killing Thill and disposing of her body in Resurrection Bay. Eklutna Annie, an unidentified young woman, was found buried near South Eklutna Lake Road in 1980. Hansen admitted to stabbing her after she attempted to escape his CE. Joanne Messina, a 24-year-old topless dancer, was last seen on May 19, 1980, in Seward. Hansen lured her with the promise of money for sex, and then shot her and her dog near the Snow River. Her decomposed body was found in a gravel pit in July 1980. Roxane Eastland, a 24-year-old woman, disappeared on June 28, 1980, from Anchorage. She was last seen planning to meet an unknown man downtown, but never arrived. Hansen admitted to killing her, although her body was never located. Lisa Futrell, a 41-year-old exotic dancer, was abducted by Hansen on September 6, 1980. She failed to return home after her shift at a nightclub, and her body was discovered buried near a gravel pit in 1984. Sherry Morrow, a 23-year-old topless dancer, vanished on November 17, 1981, after telling friends she was meeting a photographer. Her body was found in a shallow grave along the Nick River in 1982, bearing gunshot wounds to the back. The clothing she was buried in indicated she may have been naked when shot. Andrea Mona Fish Altieri, a 24-year-old woman, disappeared on December 2, 1981, after boarding a taxi in Anchorage. Hansen confessed to kidnapping, sexually assaulting, and shooting her before dumping her body into the Nick River. Her remains were never found. Sue Luna, a 23-year-old exotic dancer, agreed to a photo shoot with Hansen on May 26, 1982. She was abducted, hunted down, and shot to death in the Nick River area. Her body was discovered in 1984. Robin Pelkey, a 19-year-old woman, was found stabbed and shot near Horseshoe Lake in April 1984. Her identity was unknown until 2021, and it is unclear if she was involved in sexual activities, a common pattern in Hansen's victims. Delynn Sugar Renee Frey, a 22-year-old woman, was reported missing in March 1983, but was not immediately identified as a victim. Her body was found on a Nick River sandbar in August 1985. Paula Goulding, 30, was kidnapped by Hansen on April 25, 1983. She was driven to his aircraft, shackled, and threatened with a gun. Paula managed to flee, but Hansen shot and killed her with a rifle. Her body was found on September 2, 1983, buried in a shallow grave. Malai Larson, 28, went missing on July 10, 1981. Her body was discovered on April 24, 1984, in a parking lot near the Nick Arm Bridge. Teresa Watson, 22, was last seen on March 25, 1983. Hansen abducted and killed her at Scenic Lake. Her remains were found on May 17, 1984. Angela Lynn Fettern, 24, a dancer, disappeared in February 1983. Her body was found on April 26, 1984, near a small lake close to Figure 8 Lake. 20-year-old Tamara Tommy Pedersen, dancer at an Anchorage nightclub, was last heard from during a phone call on August 7, 1982. She mentioned being offered money for posing in photographs before she was kidnapped and killed by Hansen. After Hansen confessed, Tammy's body was found 1.5 miles from the Old Nick Bridge on April 29, 1984. On June 13, 1983, Robert Hansen abducted 17-year-old Cindy Paulson after offering her money for a sexual act. He took her to his home in Muldoon, where he raped and tortured her. Chained in the basement, she managed to escape while Hansen was occupied with loading his plane at Merrill Field Airport. Paulson fled, leaving her sneakers behind as evidence, and sought help from a passing truck driver, Robert Yount. She was eventually found handcuffed at the Big Timber Motel. Detective Glenn Floth and FBI Special Agent John Douglas collaborated on a profile, leading them to suspect Hansen as the perpetrator based on Paulson's testimony and the recovered bodies of other women. A search warrant was obtained, and during the search of Hansen's property, incriminating evidence was discovered, including jewelry belonging to the missing women and an aeronautical chart with marks matching the locations of previous body discoveries. Hansen initially denied the evidence but eventually confessed, admitting to a series of attacks on Alaskan women since 1971. He was charged with assault, kidnapping, weapons offenses, theft, and insurance fraud. In a plea bargain, he pleaded guilty to 4 homicides and provided information on other victims. Hansen guided investigators to 17 grave sites, revealing 12 previously unknown locations. Despite some marks on his map that he refused to disclose, the remains of 12 victims were recovered. Hansen was sentenced to 461 years in prison without parole. He served time in various correctional facilities, including the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and the Spring Creek Correctional Center in Seward, Alaska. He died on August 21, 2014, at the age of 75, due to natural causes at the Alaska Regional Hospital in Anchorage. In conclusion, the case of Robert Hansen serves as a chilling reminder of the victims who tragically lost their lives. Let us remember those affected by these heinous acts and honor their memory. Thank you for watching this video, and we hope you found it informative. I am Alex, and this is Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe. Hey folks, in today's Conundrum we will cover the case of Herman Webster Mudgett, also known as Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, or H Holmes, an American con artist and serial killer. He committed various crimes such as insurance fraud, swindling, check forging, bigamy, horse theft, and murder. Although he confessed to 27 murders, including some people who were still alive, he was convicted and sentenced to death for the murder of his accomplice, Benjamin Pitezel. Holmes was executed on May 7, 1896. Many of the stories about his infamous murder castle and alleged crimes are likely exaggerated or fabricated for sensationalism. Holmes was known for giving contradictory accounts of his life, making it difficult to discern the truth from his statements. While some consider him a serial killer, his murders were often motivated by self-preservation and furthering his fraudulent activities rather than a desire for bloodshed. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and put the notification bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. H. Holmes, born Herman Webster Mudgett, was born in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, on May 16, 1861, to Levi Horton Mudgett and Theodate Page Price. He was the third child in the family, with older siblings Ellen and Arthur, as well as younger siblings Mary and Henry. His father worked as a farmer, trader, and house painter, while his parents were devout Methodists. Despite attempts to associate him with characteristics common among serial killers, such as animal cruelty and a violent upbringing, there is no concrete evidence from contemporary sources to support these claims. In 1878, Holmes married Clara Lovering, and they had a son named Robert. Holmes attended the University of Vermont, but left after a year due to dissatisfaction. He then enrolled in the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery, graduating in 1884. During his time there, he allegedly participated in grave robbing for medical cadavers under Professor William James Herdman, whom he worked with in the anatomy lab. Holmes had previous experience in human dissection under Nahum White in New Hampshire, and later confessed to using cadavers for insurance fraud during his college years. Holmes had a tumultuous relationship with Clara, and she moved back to New Hampshire in 1884, knowing little about him afterward. Rumors circulated in Moores Forks, New York, regarding Holmes's association with a missing boy, but no investigation took place, and Holmes swiftly left the town. He found employment at Norristown State Hospital in Philadelphia, but quit shortly after and took a job at a drugstore. However, a child died after consuming medicine from the store, leading Holmes to deny involvement and immediately leave the city. Before moving to Chicago, he changed his name to Henry Howard Holmes to evade potential exposure from previous scams. In his confession, Holmes claimed to have killed his former medical school classmate, Robert Leacock, in 1886 for insurance money. However, Leacock was found to have died in Canada in 1889. In late 1886, while still married to Clara, Holmes married Myrta Belknap in Minneapolis. He filed for divorce from Clara, but the proceedings went nowhere. Holmes had a daughter named Lucy with Myrta, born in 1889. Holmes lived with Myrta and Lucy in Wilmette, Illinois, while spending most of his time in Chicago for business. He married Georgiana Yoke in 1894, despite still being married to both Clara and Myrta. H. Holmes's castle, located near the Englewood Post Office in Illinois, captivated the public's imagination. Although often depicted as a nightmarish structure with hidden horrors, the truth is more mundane. Holmes arrived in Chicago in 1886 and purchased a drugstore from Elizabeth S. Holton. He later acquired an adjacent lot, constructing a two-story building with retail spaces and apartments. Holmes expanded it with a third floor, envisioning a hotel for the World's Columbian Exposition. Contrary to popular tales, there is no evidence that Holmes targeted strangers visiting the World's Fair. His victims were mostly people he knew. While Holmes did have a history of selling cadavers to medical schools, he obtained them through grave robbing, not by murdering tourists. The sensationalized reports of secret chambers, gas chambers, and a basement crematorium in the murder castle were unfounded. The reality was a more conventional hotel layout, albeit with some hidden rooms. An unknown arsonist set fire to the hotel, leading to its partial destruction. It was later rebuilt and used as a post office until 1938. In addition to the castle, Holmes also had a one-story factory, allegedly for glass bending. Speculation suggests the furnace may have been used to destroy evidence related to his crimes. H. Holmes had several early victims. One of them was his mistress, Julia Smythe, who disappeared along with her daughter Pearl. Holmes claimed that Julia died during an abortion, and that he poisoned Pearl to hide the truth. Emmeline Sigrande and Emily Van Tassel, who both worked for Holmes, also vanished. While working in the chemical bank building on Dearborn Street, Holmes met and became close friends with Benjamin Pitezel, whom he used for criminal activities. Holmes convinced Minnie Williams to transfer her property to him, and later rented an apartment with her, posing as husband and wife. Minnie and her sister Annie disappeared. Holmes was suspected of killing 6 other individuals who went missing between 1891 and 1895. There are theories linking Holmes to Jack the Ripper based on similarities in their activities and physical descriptions. Holmes's activities in the U.S. are well documented, except for a short span of time between July 1888 and the beginning of 1889, during which he seems to have virtually disappeared. Jack the Ripper's murder spree took place from August to November 1888. Not long after Jack the Ripper's final victim, Mary Kelly, was eviscerated, a ship's log in England revealed that a passenger named H. Holmes booked passage for America. Holmes attempted insurance fraud by faking his own death, and later convinced Pitezel to do the same. Instead, Holmes killed Pitezel and collected the insurance payout. He took custody of 3 of Pitezel's children and traveled across the United States and Canada. He murdered 2 of the children by asphyxiating them in a trunk. The bodies of the Pitezel girls were found in a cellar in Toronto. Detective Frank Geyer discovered the decomposed bodies and also found evidence of Holmes's crimes in Indianapolis. Holmes's murder spree finally ended when he was arrested in Boston on November 17, 1894, after being tracked there from Philadelphia by the private Pinkerton National Detective Agency. After his arrest, H. Holmes faced a trial for the murder of Benjamin Pitezel. The investigation into his building in Englewood, known as the Castle, yielded no conclusive evidence to convict him in Chicago. However, in October 1895, Holmes was found guilty of Pitezel's murder and sentenced to death. His confessions were deemed mostly nonsensical. On May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged at Moyamensing Prison for Pitezel's murder. Despite his calm demeanor, he requested to be buried in a coffin encased in cement, fearing grave robbers. Holmes died from strangulation, twitching for over 15 minutes before being declared dead. He was buried in an unmarked grave at Holy Cross Cemetery in Yeadon, Pennsylvania. In 1909, one of Holmes's informants, Hedgepeth, was shot and killed by a police officer during a holdup. The mysteries surrounding Holmes's castle remained unsolved even after the death of Patrick Quinlan, the former caretaker, who committed suicide in 1914. The castle itself, as I mentioned earlier, was destroyed by a mysterious fire in August 1895. 2 men were seen entering and quickly leaving the building before explosions occurred, leading to its complete destruction. The site was later occupied by a postal service branch. In 2017, Holmes's body was exhumed for testing, which confirmed his identity. Despite being buried in cement, his body had not decomposed normally, and his clothes and mustache were remarkably well preserved. After identification, Holmes was reburied. In conclusion, H. Holmes stands as one of America's first notorious serial killers. His heinous actions and manipulation showcase the depths of human evil. It is important to remember and honor the victims who suffered at his hands, acknowledging their tragic fate. While you are here, check some of my other videos if you like this. I am Alex, and this is Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe.